Welcome to another episode, Pound for Pound Box Report. Live Friday night episode of the show. Just couldn't get things going on our usual Monday day. Usually on Monday. Let me take that back. Just due to some circumstances, I wasn't able to do the show on Monday. So we're doing it right now. I am host Michael. This is episode 329. Joining me this week, usual cast of characters: Gail from Communities Digital News and Falcon Valley Group, Daniel from For Boxing News and the Inscriber. What's going on, lady and gent?
Hey, Rare Friday Night Show. Let's get it on.
Yeah, indeed. For those who are new to Pound for Pound Box Report, Pound for Pound Box Report, live YouTube show, podcast, as well as website discussing all things boxing. The motto is when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When it's bad, we will talk about it. Bottom line is, if it concerns the sweet science, it will get talked about. Want to find more information, please go to the website, p4pboxingreport.com. I'm going to repeat that, p4pboxingreport.com. You check the top center of the page. You'll find links to what find us all over podcast formats like Anchor, Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcast, anywhere between. We're just about everywhere at this point. You look towards the bottom portion of the page, you'll find links to where to follow us all over social media, where to find the Facebook page, the Twitter page, the Tumblr page, YouTube page, as well as the IG page. And also on the bottom portion of the page, link to where you can donate. Got a Cash Me PayPal donation link. And last but certainly not least, a link to my online coaching page. I am an online coach for Beachbody. Check out the online coaching page for all the programs on Beachbody On Demand. If you're looking to get yourself in shape for the summer, if you're looking to take your fitness to the next level, please check out my coaching page. If you're looking to take part of my Let's Build Together challenge, have one starting July 5th. Gail has blessed me with deciding to take part. Hopefully, we can get Daniel to do that as well. If you're looking for a boxing-based program specific, since this is a boxing podcast, please check out the 10 rounds workout program. 10 rounds is what it is. It's a boxing-based program. 3 days, 5 days a week, 3 days of cardio using boxing-based moves, 2 days a week of weightlifting. I think I would subscribe that personally. It's a really fun workout, challenging, but not too strenuous where you think you can't do it. But if you really want to step the game up and take part in things like the old P90X stuff, the old Insanity Asylums, 6 weeks of the work, which is a beast. The new 645 workout program is coming in July. Please check out my coaching page on Pound for Pound Box Report website. And last but certainly not least, if you want to email us, you can email the show at p4pboxing@p4pboxingreport.com. Let's going to be a short show this week. Let's how can I put this? Let's start with what happened last night, Gail, and Claressa Shields, right? We know her resume, we know her accomplishments in boxing. Undisputed middleweight champion, moved down to 154. Is the current undisputed champion at junior middleweight. Also won a title at super middleweight. She calls herself the GOAT, and for reasons. For years, she has teased and hinted about moving on to MMA, right? But she took that initial step last night, made her debut fighting a lady by the name of Elkin. She had her troubles in the first 2 rounds, but in the third, after getting a bit of a good word from her corner, she kind of woke up and she kind of turned on the switch and ended up stopping Elkin in 3 rounds. Your thoughts on her performance and future for Claressa? Do you think that this move to MMA, this has had the chance to be a more permanent thing? How much, given the success and the attention that she got from this, how much will do you think the focus on boxing will subside long term and she'll eventually move away from the sport? I hope not. Your overall assessment of what went down and kind of prognosticate her future long term.
Well, it seems to me Claressa is trying to keep a lot of her options open. And, she's got to look out for number one. It's a smart thing to do to explore whether going to mixed martial arts gives her more of a lane. She's not got a lot in front of her that looks challenging in boxing. And so she said to herself, what the hell? Let's give this a try. Let's see if there's opportunity, if there's money, if there's more visibility. I think it was a smart thing to give it a try. I admire her ambition. She trained for the last 7 months for this fight. She was given a veteran opponent who, on paper at least, didn't look like was going to give her a lot of trouble. She did end up giving her a lot of trouble because Claressa and the rest of us learned pretty quick, it's one thing to have punching power in the octagon. That's great, but if you don't have the wrestling game, the ground game, all the other tools, just being a boxer alone isn't going to do it. So Claressa found herself after 2 of the 3 rounds down on the cards. That was new for her. I don't think she's probably had that happen to her since she was, 12 years old, probably. So she had to step it up. Her trainer hollered at her, you're going to have to stop this fight to win. To her credit, she did. And that is the mark of a veteran, a champion. Even though this isn't her primary sport, at least right now, she did not want that in her debut. So she got it, and she got it mainly by managing to get her opponent down to the ground in a position where she could punch her out. And that's what she did. She admitted she's got a lot to learn, that it was, it was tough. It was a challenge. I don't think any of us have to panic over this or read anything more into it than we saw play out. But the truth is, Claressa has kind of hit the ceiling in boxing. And women do have more opportunities for themselves in mixed martial arts from a broad perspective than they do at professional boxing. Not the same for the men, but think about the big women's stars of combat sports. I mean, it's like in boxing, if you know one name in boxing, most people know Floyd Mayweather, casuals. If you say, well, what women's combat sports, professional name do you know? Well, probably a lot of them still know Ronda Rousey, but a lot of the others would say Amanda Nunes. They wouldn't name a female boxer. So I see where Claressa is going with this. And the truth is, a lot of those women make way more money on sponsorships than they do on their purses. And the one other thing I hope you all noticed if you were watching this card is how many times that Beats commercial featuring Claressa ran during the telecast. That's where she made her money last night. Her Beats sponsorship, not her purse. She did fine. She's brand new to this sport, and it reinforces what we should all know is that the skills don't necessarily translate from one to the other. They're completely different disciplines.
I'll go to you, Daniel. Let's keep it in the boxing context for now regarding Claressa. For those who follow the sport, for those who follow women's boxing in particular, the fight that we want to see is a rematch, if you will, as pros between Shields and Savannah Marshall, right? They got history. Marshall was the only woman to give Shields a defeat during the amateur days. Marshall has gone on to win a belt at 160 pounds. Shields is currently campaigning at 154. The two ladies have been beefing back and forth, right? I pinned an article for 3kingsboxing.com. If you want to check it out, go to 3kingsboxing.com. Shout out to the crew over there. The lead man, 2K, head of media relations, Bo, who you heard on the show a couple of weeks back, right? Head writer, Bakari, fellow senior writer, Big Cool, editor Red. Latest source for boxing information, please go to 3kingsboxing.com. I wrote an article for that today in which Hannah Marshall gave a response, which was basically that fight let her know that she would beat Claressa not only in a boxing ring or in an MMA, Shields has said she will fight Marshall, but for big money, right? $500,000, $750,000 to go over to the UK for the fight. Given the success and the attention that Shields got for this fight, uh, does it take away the likelihood of us ever seeing that fight between Shields and Marshall, or will there be an emerging demand for that fight to happen? In my opinion, I think it has to happen. If Shields is going to move on to MMA on a more permanent basis, she cannot put down the gloves, the boxing gloves, without fighting Savannah Marshall. It's her biggest fight. It's her best opponent, her toughest opponent. To me, it has to happen. Your thoughts?
From a boxing sense, yes, it has to happen. Like this is the one of the few fights that you can have with Claressa at the weight classes that she fights in that are intriguing because almost everything else she's taken care of. Like for the last few years, the biggest challenge would have been Christina Hammer. We all saw what she did to Christina Hammer. The situation, unfortunately, is the reason I think probably Claressa's doing it, that she's gunning for the payday. She's gunning for the fact that if she has to fight, it has to be worth her while. And unfortunately, this is the bad part about it because she got more eyes on her when it came to MMA, but the people that already know her from boxing already saw that it didn't bring any more new people back into it because unfortunately there's from what I've noticed, at least personal interactions and people interviewing people, there's much less migration or at least duality between a boxing fan getting into MMA than an MMA fan getting into boxing. And that's what makes it a little bit perilous because if Claressa starts getting more fans in MMA and they don't translate to the boxing ring, she may just say, I'm getting more popular in MMA. MMA, the purse is a little bit more stable for women, so why not just do MMA full time? And I'll buy them off this, but the competitor in Claressa, I know she's gonna do the papers fight because she kind of knows if she goes into MMA full time without having that fight, the perception will be she ran away from it. And if you notice anything about Claressa Shields, she does not like to be called a coward. She does not like to be called almost anything, but she does not like to be called a coward. So I do believe this fight will happen. Like I said, the hype for it exists already among hardcore fans in boxing. It'll stay that way. The question is now, can you bring over some MMA fans along the way and then get them hooked into boxing, into this? Because more often than not, that doesn't happen to be the case.
Well, bringing fans, quote unquote, fans over into boxing is kind of striking how the irony of what Daniel just said goes into what we will talk about later in terms of our analysis of a certain event that took place last weekend. So I note that from you, Daniel. First and foremost, I want to give a shout out to Intangible Boxing News, who's checking us out live right now. He has a comment. He says, I'm not seeing Claressa's MMA debut. Fascinating event, though. Not sure what her outlook on boxing is, though, whether she continues extensively or not. That's the issue. That's an issue, Intangible. If Eddie Hearn, who is Marshall's promoter, is smart, we would hear him mentioning something about making an official offer on the table for the fight. Shields has said she wants 500,000 to 700 to $750,000 for that fight to go over the UK. Call her bluff. Reach out to her people beginning of next week and say, you want 500,000? Here it is. You want 750,000? Here's an offer on the table. See what's up. I hope, Daniel, my heart says that you're absolutely right about Shields. That she's a competitor, right? And that she wouldn't sit. It wouldn't sit well with her for her to move on to MMA and say without fighting Marshall. However, money talks, right? And money affects all of us in one way or another. She's talked about, right, how she doesn't get enough attention in boxing. She's talked about the disparity between men and women boxing. Um, MMA, I'm hearing that she's going to fight another MMA bout either this later on this summer or early fall. I hope that she doesn't get too enticed by that quick dollar because she's a boxer. Period. I know she's going into MMA, but she's a boxer. That's her claim to fame. That's what she does best. And there's unfinished business. Let's hope she finishes that business up and fights Savannah Marshall either late this year or early next year. And let's move on to some other fights here. And I want to thank again Intangible Boxing News. Thank you for your comment. If you have any more comments or questions, please feel free to say or ask. Other fights here. Going to you, Daniel. If you were able to see Daniel Dubois against Bogdan Dinu, please comment on it. Of course, Dubois coming off of that TKO loss to Joe Joyce. A lot of people say he quote unquote quit. He suffered an orbital fracture over the bone, right? Fought all the way through, making his comeback bout to stop Dinu in 2 rounds. He got this easy win, right hand finished him off. If you were Frank Warren handling him, what direction do you see him going at this point?
Well, as far as on the fight, there's just, like we mentioned when we did the preview last week, this was the textbook Frank Warren rebuild fight. Somebody that's not too dangerous, somebody that'll make you look good, and will get that KO on the record, which is exactly what Dubois did. Now, if you're Frank Warren, you're in a bit of a conundrum because Joe Joyce is ranked by the WBO. So you have to position him now to possibly force a fight down the line for the winner of the very likely Anthony Joshua Alexander Usyk fight. Otherwise, you're going to have to try to put him against other, like I said, world contender level of opponents, which Dubois, he's not there yet. So a rematch with Joyce may come down the line, may come at the end of next year if they don't get anything else. But the main thing about it is that when it comes to Dubois, you have to rebuild him from run up. And the fact that he's young, that's the also main difference. With Joyce, you don't have a lot of time in your hands. Since he's in his, like I said, he's in his 30s compared to Dubois, who's in his early 20s. So you have a bit more time to make sure that he learns more styles, gets more adjusted. And like Intangible said, the main thing was this would have been a fight that get rounds in, but I think when it comes to the heavyweights, it's not so unfortunately much about rounds as it is getting the knockout at that weight class. And that's what Dubois did. You could start building him up again, get him fight, not Commonwealth, not British level heavyweights. He's proven to be beyond that. But get to more European levels. Try to position him in a fight down the line, probably at the end of this year. I wouldn't mind it, actually. Him versus Tony Yoka. 2 prospects, 2 very young prospects. Obviously, you have the built-in rivalry. It's England versus France. And that's the fight that can make it down the line if you cannot get the Joyce rematch. Slowly build him up. Like I said, don't try to rush him into anything because you have a lot more time to work on with Dubois than you do with Joyce.
I want to give a shout out to Mr. Boomaye, I believe, who is on Twitter, who responded to my tweet saying that we're doing the show. Thank you for your comments, sir. Please check us out here. Come on, ask a question, leave a comment. They're all welcome. Intangible Boxing. He also has a comment live on the live YouTube chat. He says in reaction to the Dubois fight, I expected to see Dubois get more rounds, but I thought the main improvement he made in the fight was the foot movement. It wasn't as linear as previous, but he still needs to go move. He still needs to move his head off the line. I did notice that from the 2 rounds I saw intangible. Better move footwork, side to side, angle stepping instead of stepping in line, as you said, straight forward, straight back. Saw better jab work from him as well, from the little bit of that I saw as well. So he does need to do a little bit more improvement in head movement. That was the problem against Joe Joyce. He kept coming straight down the middle. He didn't move his head, and Joyce, he may not be the most technically sound fighter, but he has a ramrod of a jab, and he was popping Dubois with that all night long from the beginning to the end, and that basically would cause a fractured orbital bone, right? Dubois is talented. He can punch, but there's still some technical improvements that he needs to make. Let's see what he does after this fight. And in the fight against Yoka, I'm not mad at that. I wouldn't be against that for, let's just say, late 2021, early 2022. Yoka, he has a deal with Top Rank. Bring him over to the UK for that fight. Simulcasted on Frank Warren's outlet and as well as ESPN Plus, or one of the ESPN networks at the same time. Yeah, that's a good overall matchup. I like that, Daniel. Let's move on to some more fights here. I was adverse to talk about this exhibition last week. I said I was going to let Gail and Daniel opine about it, right? Let's talk about some fights on that card. And let's begin with Jarrett Hurd, Gail, who was a part on the undercard of that exhibition. Fought a guy by the name of, and I spelled it wrong, excuse me my description, I will correct that after the show. Luis Arias is his name, not Luis Arias, Luis Arias. I will correct that. And it is, for those who's checking us out live, I will correct that in the post after the show is over. Arias won by unanimous decision. It wasn't the fact that he won. He scored the upset, Gail. I was at work in the staff meeting with the Three Kings crew, and it was giving a commentary on the fight as they was checking it out. And Hurd has always had deficiencies on defense, right? In this fight, it was even more prevalent. He was like a punching bag, Gil, all night long. Right hands, left jabs, left hooks. He just kept walking in, just eating punches. Yes, he fought back, but it seems like the time off didn't help him. He seemed like a fighter on the decline. I'm worried about him even more so after this fight. Your thoughts, Gail?
Oh, there's a lot to be worried about, unfortunately. You know, I remember when Hurd first sort of burst on the scene, and you know, at the same time, Erickson Lubin was on the rise, and they were both sort of vying for prospect of the year that year, and it was really a coin toss. And here we are quite a few years later, and Jarrett Hurd, he's got some talents, but he just they haven't come to fruition. You know, the career just hasn't developed like we all thought it would, and the layoff was not kind to him. Arias was motivated, was busy, was aggressive. You know, he was going to take what he wanted. It was by far the best fight on the card, and a real fight. And Hurd was expected to win, tee himself up to get busy at 154, or, you know, maybe even middleweight. But he had said in the week leading up to the fight, no, he had business to do at 154. He can still make 154 easily. He's got a lot of thinking to do after this fight. It leaves him very little path in front of him without a whole lot of crawling back up the hill he just rolled down. But props to Arias. He wanted it worse. He worked harder for it, and he got it. He's now got a lot of opportunity. in a very competitive division.
Thanks for the correction, Intangible. It was by split decision that he won. Um, what did he say? Yeah, this is right by. It was right by split decision. And if he look, he says he can make 154. Given what we saw, it doesn't matter. He's talked about in the lead up. He's talking about wanting a rematch with Julian Williams, who beat him 2 years ago, and then fighting unified champion Jamel Charlo. Charlo will wipe the floor with him. So would J Rock. Cause let's just say Castano beats Charlo, right, and decides to fight Jarrett Hurd. He beat him as well, and I don't even want to think about moving up to 160, which he said he eventually wants to do. Just no. The sad thing is, what can he really do? Because he's so one-dimensional, because he's so limited, right? In his previous bout, he tried to quote-unquote box and use his height and his reach advantage. He didn't look good in that either. So I personally think he needs to look in the mirror and have a really come to Jesus meeting with himself in terms of what he really wants to do. And dare I say, whether he really wants to continue on, because that was not good at all. Let's see where he goes, but yeesh, yeah, nah. That's all I can say. I can't even have no language for Hurd's performance in that fight. His upset loss to Arias. I go to you, Daniel. Another fight on that exhibition undercard was Badou Jack. We talked about last week how he was supposed to fight Pascal, but Pascal was on that Big Baby Miller cocktail. Last week we said he was on. He tested positive for 3 PEDs. In the time off between last week's show and now, come to find out he tested positive for a 4th drug. So yeah, Pascal, he's done. I don't, whether it's in Canada, whether it's the US, he's going to receive a heavy suspension. I'll be really surprised if he's allowed to fight again. Anyway, Daniel, Jack fought a guy by the name of Colina, stopped him in 4 rounds. Easy work by Badou Jack. He talked about move. I read whether he said he's contemplating a move up to cruiserweight. I still believe he should stay at 175 pounds. There are fights for him there, right? Hello, how about him and Dimitri Bivol? That's a decent match. Should he move on to cruiserweight or should he stay at 175, Daniel?
I'm of an opposite mindset. If anything, to me, he should move down to super middleweight, because yes, he won in an impressive fashion, but it was against a replacement opponent who did look like he more or less he did not want to be there. Now, the thing, unfortunately, when it comes to Badou Jack is he's kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, because think about it, jumping from light heavyweight to cruiserweight is a 25-pound jump. And while, yeah, you don't exactly have to go up to the 200-pound limit for a cruiserweight, you better be close to hit those guys, to hit the Dorticos. And that's going to be a tougher challenge, because unfortunately with Badou Jack, he's almost in the same case like Joy. So absolutely, luckily, he hasn't had as much mileage, but he is in that age range where there's not much left, unfortunately. And he has been one of the hard luck fighters. We kind of know he got done dirty in that draw with the Gale. And there, at least at the top of my head, I think 1 or 2 other fights where we all know he won, but he didn't get the decision. The problem, though, is if you stay light heavyweight, Bib was probably the only one that you're not going to be scared to get knocked out in. So that's the main thing that needs to focus on if you're going to go to the WBA, which would have been good if you fought Pascal, because Pascal has one of those WBA interim interim regular championships at light heavyweight. That would have worked. But Pascal fucked that up. Pardon my language, but yeah, he fucked that up. Now, the problem, though, that's what I said, to me, going back down to super middleweight makes a little bit more sense because you showed a little bit more power in that range. And also, if you fight well enough, you can get yourself into the sweepstakes, the Canelo sweepstakes, if Canelo chooses to stay at super middleweight. But that's going to be everything depends upon what he wants to do, because look, at light heavyweight, we mentioned it. Like Bibbles, the only one that I'm worried. I'm not worried about him knocking him out. He'll outbox him if he doesn't knock him out in 3 rounds. He will get started. I'm sorry, Badou Jack would get starched by Beterbiev. He may win against Joe Smith, but Joe Smith is kind of in that situation, same thing as Deontay Wilder, where if he lands his punch, you're going down. So he's in an unfortunate tough place, but he's in between a rock and a hard place. I would probably say go down to super middleweight. It doesn't hurt you that much. And like we talked about last week, Nonito Donaire is a perfect example. He went back down to the weight class that he did his best in. And it's showing that he's still doing the best in that area. So rather than move up, I'd rather move down.
It's tough because I don't know if he can make 168 anymore. At cruiserweight, let's look at the landscape. Makabu's vulnerable, but Makabu can hit like hell with one shot. He could take Jack out with one punch. The WBA champ, I'm not even gonna try to Arson. I'll give his first name. I'm not even gonna try to pronounce his first name right. Honestly, I've seen clips of him, but I don't know that much about him. Brittney, I don't see him beating Okole. Just too tall and too long for the likes of Badou Jack. And plus, he would ugly the fight up. Of course, he outside of his title win, he uglies every fight up. That's what he is, right? 75, I mentioned Bivol. I think that would be a distance fight. Berbiev, that would be fun, in my opinion, because conventional wisdom is that Berbiev is too big and too strong and too powerful for the likes of Jack. But Jack does some cute little things in there nice little things in there with the jab, with the body shots. He's a pro's pro, right? I don't think that Berbiev may knock him out eventually, but I think it's a tougher fight than people give him credit for. As with Smith, I think he could outbox Smith until Smith catches him. So it's an unknown in terms of what Badou Jack is what his future is. I like to see him at 175 pounds. 168 is nice, would sound nice, but I just don't think he can make the weight at this moment, at this point of his career, at the stage of his career. Look, I'm adverse to talk about that main event and that exhibition. I don't even want to name it. We know who they were. The former great boxer who calls himself TBE, right? Fighting the YouTube guy who comes off as a troll and a prankster. Punkish-like behavior, as far as I'm concerned. They fought last week on Sunday in an 8-round exhibition. It went the distance. A lot of people were mad at the result. I wrote about an article about this for Three Kings Boxing, and 2 things in mind. One, Floyd, he's a hoe for money, A, and B, he just basically told y'all he robbed y'all on purpose. On the other hand, if you're willing to pay that much money to watch him fight, it's kind of not on him. Then again, why, Floyd? Why? You worth $500 million to $1 billion. Why accept this Why accept this borderline farce when you don't need to? take the time to invest in your own promotional company. Put it this way, the same energy that you put in promoting this fight, how come you won't do it for Tank Davis and other fighters on your stable? More than that, why don't you help raise and cultivate the next Floyd Mayweather? Businessman. He talks about how he's such a smart businessman. He talks about how much he is a smart businessman and all that stuff. Look at the current boxing landscape and look at these fighters out here and say, this is what you do. Put them behind the scenes. If you want to make this money, if you want to make these kind of inroads, do that. Why engage in this nonsense? Your thoughts. Is this good? What the folks foolishly paid for and watched? Is it good for the sport or bad?
I don't think we need to worry about it. And I don't think Floyd has to pick one or the other avenue you just discussed. Just because he put in a few days training over the course of 6 weeks for an exhibition fight that earned him $100 million or more, who would say no to that? That is easy money. That is easy work. He'd be an idiot not to do it when that money is there on the table. Are you saying that if that money was there on the table in front of you, you wouldn't do it?
When you worth as much as he is, it's unnecessary. You're just being greedy at this point.
You know what? Nobody ever says, very few people, I will say, I will not make it an absolute. Very few people will turn down a $100 million payday. And along with that came attention. When you've got as big an ego and you're used to getting that kind of attention as Floyd is, that's part of it. You know, he said he did it because it was fun. He flat out called it for what it was, legalized bank robbery. He laughed all the way to the bank. And there were people who, unlike us, happily paid the money, enjoyed it for what it was. You know, let people have their fun. They're not hurting anybody. People made a buttload of money doing this, everybody involved. The only real loser was Showtime when their system crashed and cable systems and streaming services crashed all over the country. As you know, people always flock to the last minute buy, and then they get mad when they can't get in. You know, folks, buy the damn thing 24 hours in advance and you won't have that problem. That's my little PSA for you. You know what? I see this, frankly, as fairly harmless. People want to spend their money on it, fine. This doesn't intersect all that much with the hardcore boxing fan. And frankly, that's a smaller and smaller pie of people. It doesn't really matter. It did give some guys payday opportunities. Arias and Hurd, Badou Jack, Jean Pascal blew it, dumbass that he is. I am not super worked up about this. Now, did I pay for it? Did I watch it? No, I did not. I saw plenty of highlights the next day. I wasn't assigned to cover it. I wrote a column previewing it, explaining here's what you're going to see. Here's how this stuff works. If this is your cup of tea, cheers. Enjoy it. Drink up. Great. I don't think anybody spent their mortgage on this thing. It's $50. You know, if you and your friends got together and you watched, you're all vaccinated and everybody's safe, great. Have a good time. I'm just not worked up over it. I'm just not.
It is what it was.
For me, go ahead, Daniel. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, go ahead, Mike, first.
For me, it's not a question of being worked up. It's a question of the validity of it. Don't sell us as this, don't sell us as that, and then it turns out to not be this. And again, there is an underlying issue of exploitation here, which is kind of sort of, it's like, okay, Floyd, what is enough is enough. Your plateau is only going to reach so much.
Well, wait a minute. Wait a minute. I want to ask you a question. Who's being exploited? Aren't these all adults who knew exactly what they were getting into? I mean, certainly buyer beware, which was the theme of my column, just explaining if you think this is a sanctioned fight with judges.
No, exploit it in the sense that don't sit there and try to sell me that this is going to bring a new set of followers to boxing. They're not here for boxing, quote unquote. There was him for those two dudes. They was there for those two dudes.
Boxing is, legitimate boxing has overhyped fights for years. What's the difference? I mean, come on. Tomorrow night's fight, which we will get into. Does anyone really think tomorrow night's main event is in any way going to be competitive? Oh, hell no. No, absolutely not. But if they want to sell it as a challenge and, test and all, come on. We all
That's between two legit guys. One of these guys wasn't legit, and the other guy is way past his prime, selling us like.
Well, let the buyer beware. All this stuff gets hyped. All of it gets hyped. MMA matchups that are not competitive get hyped. Boxing that's not competitive gets hyped. I think intelligent people know when they're listening to carnival barkers trying to sell them something. People try to sell us stuff outside of sports 24/7, 365 days a year. And I think most people, not all, understand that. And they need to filter accordingly. And that's their job. Because when you're parting with your money, you should know what you're buying.
That assumes that people are always smart like that. Let's bring Daniel into the conversation. Your thoughts on this, Daniel?
It was what it was. Floyd called it perfectly when he said this was a legalized bank robbery. Now, there's nothing to really much analyze. Like the only thing that got people somewhat hyped up, and I'm doing the quotations when I say hyped up, is suppose the last 25 seconds of that first round where the Paul brother, who did film a dead body in the Japanese suicide forest, I'm not letting that go, decided threw like 25 punches and none of them landed. And people got hyped up about that. The issue when it comes to, is this good for boxing? Is this good in that area? I saw one argument. I saw somebody, I forgot who it was, saying,
why reward someone who would do something that awful, for lack of a better word? I mean, come on.
Yeah. Well, Logan Paul, like if you're gonna stay within the space that Logan Paul's done, he's filmed, like I said, he's filmed a dead body in the rainforest, which I think he's actually banned from coming into Japan now. And he's also one of the main factors of, and if anybody Arias has kids, nieces, or nephews that are into Pokemon, he's one of the reasons why there's not a lot of Pokemon cards out right now. Because he turned Pokemon cards now into the new stock market. In fact, he came into that ring wearing a damn Charizard Pokemon card on a chain. The way the rappers had always the big clock in the chains. But here's the situation.
And putting $1 million price tag on it. Okay, sir.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's what I mentioned. He turned Pokemon cards into a new stock market. Now, here's the thing when it comes to bringing fans and bringing things into sport, because I saw somebody tweet out, I forgot his handle, who said this is a disgrace to the sport. This is the reason why legitimate fighters now are going towards the MMA route. I have a counter argument to that. You can go to the MMA route until you see the check. Conor McGregor, like, for all his antics and all his money, didn't make nowhere near as much money in the octagon as he did for that one night against Floyd. And that's the one thing, luckily, that this fight hasn't affected in many ways because what it's proven, and depending on who you listen to, as far as what the buy rate was, you have a situation where Floyd still is not being affected somewhat by the law of diminishing returns because if you listen on one spectrum, this did over 1 million buys. And supposedly Showtime said that this was the driver to the biggest one-day jump in subscriptions that they've had. It's part of the reason why, as Gail mentioned, that their servers crashed. But if you believe the other end, which actually includes people like Dave Meltzer, it didn't do that much. It did, I think, a slightly less than 500,000 buys, which is still too much for this mess. But it doesn't affect as far as the sport does at all. What it does, though, is it does highlight that people will tend to buy the regular Joe, the person that is not a hardcore boxing fan, the person that's not going to talk about the main event that we're going to talk about later on. They're going to be attracted to sideshows. It's one of the reasons why Triller does the thing that it does, even though we know certain things about Triller. But the fact of the matter is, at the end of the day, there is a chance to build into it if you build a really good undercard under this. If you build a solid undercard, which unfortunately this one wasn't, this event wasn't. But if you build one that's really, really well done, and then you have the freak show in the main event. But if you bring the people that are there to watch the freak show, and if you feed them actually good fighters, then that's the chance you can build into new box fans. But the problem is, that didn't happen this time. There were only, 2 fights that were actually legitimate boxing contests. And then one of them, unfortunately, we saw a Jarrett Hurd that just does not look good now. And a Badou Jack who's stuck between a rock and a hard place. And then the other fight was Chad Johnson. I love you, Chad, man. 305, Liberty City. But, yeah, that's all I need to say when it comes into Chad Johnson. But this is what it was. Now, will it affect anything as far as what Floyd's going to do next? No. If anything, to me, the only way this would have been salvaged, I'll be honest. The only way this would have been salvaged is if Floyd would have come out and said, I hear Manny's fighting Spence, so I'll fight the guy that Spence doesn't want to fight. Give me Bud Crawford. Then you would have saved the entire thing. But no, it didn't. The only thing that I could, because it involves working with Bob Arum. We know kind of how Floyd feels working with Bob Arum. But now all this is positioned to, if he does it next, is going to be against Jake Paul, because Jake Paul talks shit afterwards.
Man, look. So many people were upset afterwards. From what I read, people were booing in the crowd. On my timeline, people were like, "This is a joke," and their attitude was like, "You fooled me once. I'm not doing this again." So even if he was to fight the other brother, it may make some money, but it's not going to make as much money. And the way people was talking about how Floyd actually lost, hell, Ryan Garcia said it on his social media platforms that Floyd lost. I heard other comments again about Floyd lost. You saw how that YouTube dude was talking about, I went 8 rounds with the pound for pound grades and blah 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 blah. Again, this is going to tarnish a bit Floyd's name. As I was trying to make the argument before, his plateau is only going to reach so far. His height is going to go so far. It's plateaued. It really plateaued after the McGregor fight. It couldn't get any higher than that, right? Famous MMA guy, talked all that mess. The event was huge. It went rounds, and both fighters made 9 figures. Floyd, 350 million? at least. You can't get any bigger than that. This was okay. Yes, he made his money, whatever, but it's a reach. And if it continues on, and the more people see it for what it is, especially after he admitted how he's robbing fools, they're not going to go for it again, be it against little brother or anyone else. Floyd.
Here's the thing, though. Who's the audience for the next fight? If it is against Jake Paul, it's not us.
But that same audience that was for that first fight, they were also complaining.
Exactly. But they were complaining in the sense of the fact that they were just complaining because that's the first time they've seen Floyd. That's the main thing. But they'll buy it again if Jake Paul says, I'm the one next fight next. That's a fortune.
That's a wait and see. I doubt if the same amount of folks will shell out their money for that kind of a fight. I seriously doubt it.
We didn't. The bad part about it is we didn't think that many people were going to shell out money for this mess, and apparently they did.
No, I knew it was because people are stupid.
Exactly. And people were stupid enough to do it again.
Nah, not the same amount. Too many comments. People were saying I was fooled. I'm mad. Basically saying I was catfished. Nah.
Actually, if people want to have the feeling about what they felt like, I know we're not in the business of promoting other YouTube channels, but I think you've watched this, Mike. I might have actually retweeted this. There's a guy actually called Chiseled Adonis, and he went off on this. This is a dude from Brooklyn. He went off on it. Because he did the same thing. He did the Stephen A. Smith talking about Phil Jackson. I was hoodwinked, bamboozled, led astray. Verbatim. Because, yeah, to a lot of boxing fans, I agree. Floyd could have taken out Logan Paul anytime he felt like. You could tell. You could tell after 2 rounds that kid was done. But this wasn't about entertaining other people. This was about maximizing revenue for Floyd Mayweather. Which unfortunately, this is also the bad thing about Manny fighting. Still, you're not letting the next generation actually get to steal the spotlight if you're still bumping in there. And the only it's the sport is at the stage right now that the only 3 people that you can throw at regular people are Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao, and now Canelo. I'm pretty sure, especially in the U.S., if you threw Anthony Joshua out there in the middle of, let's say, Oklahoma, and ask him who he is, and you just show a picture of him, they might just think he'll probably think, oh, is he a new recruit for the Sooners? Boxing is at that point yet, but things like this are not letting those guys shine. That's the main negative of this.
It's a discussion that will continue on. We'll have our different opinions about this, whether it's good, whether it's bad for the sport. Opinions will vary across the scale. And again, yeah, it is what it is. I've had my opinion. You've heard the opinions of Gail and then Daniel. And whether we agree or disagree, we always do it in kindness, right? We do it with respect. And we'll keep it at that. Whether something like this happens again and how successful will it be, that remains to be determined. Let's talk about a bit kind of news outside the ring, if you will. Eddie Hearn and Matchroom decided to leave their partnership deal with Sky Sports, right? Well, in return, Top Rank has stepped in, and they announced a couple of days ago, or maybe even yesterday, I can't remember the exact date, a co-venture with Sky Sports is going to begin with the card this weekend. It's going to be on ESPN. I'm going to have, I can't remember, 18, 20 fights a year. Top Rank shows a year that's going to also air on Sky Sports in the UK. I'll go to you, Gail, from a business perspective. How do you think this will benefit Bob Arum Top Rank?
Well, it certainly doesn't do anything but positively expose Top Rank's material in the UK. As for Sky Sports, Matchroom went elsewhere. They didn't have a whole lot of choice. So this is not a bad consolation prize for them to see how it works out. But they've certainly lost a tremendous partnership that they had for many, many years with Matchroom Boxing, which is much more UK focused than Top Rank. So will the UK audiences be satisfied with the focus on the American fighters in the Top Rank stable? We'll see. It falls into the it's better than nothing category if you're a British boxing fan. I'm not sure it will have the lasting quality, and it doesn't have the volume that Sky did with Matchroom. But again, what else did they have? They need to fill all of that airtime with something, and to keep their boxing constituency around even a little bit, this was really the best opportunity in front of them, and maybe the only one.
And correct me if I'm wrong. You mentioned Matchroom. They've gone basically to do an exclusive deal with DAZN, right?
Correct. And, DAZN's focus right now is expanding worldwide. What they've done in the United States with boxing was really their first go around with boxing at all. So they're now trying to expand in other countries. Boxing is a great calling card because it's very international. It's very cheap to produce. So if they're doing it in one country, they can really maximize the investment and then start spending their money on other sports. They think the other big building block is another very international sport, which will be international soccer. So there's a big, big battle going on right now for the soul of sports broadcasting in Great Britain. In the United States, we've kind of gone through it already. The transition from the traditional networks broadcasting, back in the day when we used to see boxing on ABC Sports and NBC Sports, and now has moved to the cable networks and streaming. Great Britain's just now going through that. And it remains to be seen whether the fans will pay a subscription. They're very used to the pay-per-view model there, mainly because the price points are much, much lower for pay-per-views in Great Britain than they are here. So it's worked all right. Now they're going to be asked to subscribe to Matchroom via DAZN. I mean, those fights are all still available that they used to watch on Sky Sports, but they've now got to shift over to DAZN. We've already been down that road in the United States. So we'll see how the UK audience responds, where boxing is, very, very healthy and has a good fan base with a lot of national fighters involved.
Shout out to Black Amazon on Twitter, who's checking us out live. My homegirl on Twitter. She's checking out the show live, and she says on the Pound for Pound Box Report Twitter page, Daniel, she says she's agreed with you, Daniel. They will absolutely pay for the stupid again. So that's one for you, Daniel. Shout out to the homegirl Black Amazon on Twitter. Let's move on to some fights here. It's going to be light work in terms of fights, right? Not that many. The big fight for the weekend is the return of Shakur Stevenson. As we know, former featherweight champion, Daniel. He's moved up to 130 pounds. He's mandatory contender for Jamel Herring's WBO junior lightweight title. Stevenson's going to fight a guy by the name of Nakathila, from Namibia. Don't know much about him. I've only seen a couple of his fights. The fight is going to be Stevenson's Nakathila is going to take place on the 12th in Las Vegas. You can check it out live on ESPN. From your observation of the African, the fighter from the continent of Africa, Nakathila, I don't give him that much of a chance, to be honest, because good fundamental skills, right? But there are holes in his game. And say what you want about Shakur, his opposition or lack thereof. the kid is talented and highly skilled. And I think the holes that Nakathila has in his offense and his defense, right? Stevenson is going to take advantage. I'm not going to call him. I'm not going to say Nakathila is outright Bob Hope cousin territory. No hope, but it's bordering on that. I just don't see any chance that he could give Stevenson that much of a fight.
This is kind of playing it safe in a way, because this is, first of all, this is for the interim WBO super featherweight, or like I said, super featherweight or junior lightweight title, whichever one you want to call it. But it's for the interim belt. And this is just a way, I think, to placate Stevenson, who in the past couple of weeks, whether as a joke or actually for real, has been doing his best Shannon Briggs impression when it comes to showing up in places Jamar Herring likes to have fun, like an Applebee's. But at the end of the day, this is to keep it safe, make sure that he is still a good option for Herring if you can't get the Oscar Valdez fight lined up. We know that's a fight both fighters want. There's been an issue. In fact, there's been I think ESPN actually yesterday threw a little trial balloon by saying that the possible opponent for Oscar Valdez would have been Cancio. And it made it sound like that was the weight fight that was made. So maybe the negotiations for that fight aren't as good to go. But this pretty much solidifies Shakur in that space. It shouldn't be that hard of a fight for him unless he really, really slacks off. But he knows what's at stake. Like, he knows getting a world title again at 130. Jamar Herring's going to be your best opponent into it, and that could lead into you making that fight with Oscar Valdez. So it shouldn't be too. It's not that drastic. It's not going to be a fight between a tiger and a cat, but it'll be a situation where, outside of an injury, there's almost no way you can see Shakur losing.
On the undercard, Gil, you have, give me a quick second. Jose Pedraza is going to fight Julian Rodriguez. Quick word on that fight, please.
Pedraza is never in a bad fight. He's an action fighter. Most people remember his fight with Cepeda. He's not highly elegantly skilled, but with a guy like this, you don't care. He should take care of Rodriguez, but we've been surprised sometimes. We get an all-action fight between two guys who we have not all that much expectation of. So it should be fun to watch. I'm going to put it in the fun category. There are some interesting fights among the youngsters, which really make up the remainder of the undercard. I'm
glad you mentioned that. Let's go there right quick.
Yeah,
Xander specifically. Had him here interviewed him here on Pound for Pound Boxing Report, as well as with Three Kings Boxing, kind of a simulcast interview, if you will. You were the first person to bring him to my attention. A very impressive figure for an 18-year-old. I like the way he fights, talented, but the way he carries himself outside the ring, mature beyond his years. We mentioned him before. Let's talk about him again right quick.
So Xander Zayas is a prospect out of Puerto Rico, very composed, very smart kid. He's doing everything he's told. He's working out of Centenos in Florida. He's got a lot of support around him. The top-ranked team is squarely behind him, and they're smart. They're keeping him in front of fans. He's 8-0, 6 knockouts. He appeared on a card in April and had easy work, went 3 rounds, boom, done. So they said, good, all right, 8 weeks later, we're going to get you back out there in front of the people. That's the smartest thing they could possibly do with the kid like this. Yeah, he interviews like he's been in the sport 20 years. but he hasn't lost the freshness about him either. He's got both. Credit to his parents for raising such a, you're right about him carrying himself well. He speaks well, he's thoughtful, but, he isn't stiff. He still has that enthusiasm of a teenager, right? I think he's 19 by now. Very, very bright future. And it's fun to watch him because he has fun too in the ring. We're also going to see a guy on the undercard who a week ago assumed he was just going to be a professional prospect the next few years. But, hello, USA Boxing calls him. He's on the Olympic team, and that's Troy Isley. So he's well worth seeing. He was scheduled on the undercard. He didn't think he was going to make the team. He turned pro. He had one fight, which he won all 4 rounds, scheduled for a second fight tomorrow night. But USA Boxing added 3 male fighters to the Tokyo Olympic team. To this point, it was 5 women and 1 male fighter on the team. So 3 more men have been added. It's Isley, Duke Reagan, and really the most promising of all of them, Keyshawn Davis, who fought on the Canelo Saunders undercard. He has got a shot. He probably has the best middle prospect of all of the male fighters. But get a look at Troy Isley. This is the part of the card that's on ESPN Plus early in the afternoon. You'll see a future Olympian.
Yeah, and I think we're going to thanks for those fighters. Zayas, as well as the word about Troy Isley. I might need to catch up on him myself. And I think we're going to end the show on that note. I don't see any more fights. I mean, yeah, Lewis Ritson, he's fighting Nicholas Jeremias Ponce, but yeah, I don't want to talk about that fight that much.
That's where we'll see. It is available here for people to watch. And one of my favorite personalities in boxing right now is on the undercard. Alan the Savage Babic, the Croatian heavyweight, who is one of the funniest interviews you'll ever hear. And he happens to be on the Matchroom Boxing podcast this week. Don't play it around the young children because there's a whole lot of F-bombs in it, among other things. But first of all, his English, given his upbringing, is really impressive. And he's just a howl. And the host is David Diamante. And apparently the two are very good friends. It's worth a listen. I don't usually promote someone else's podcast on our podcast, but do yourself a favor. It's fun listen.
Yeah, you was going to say something, Daniel?
No, I was about to say, well, if you want to watch whoever is going to be the next IBF mandatory for welterweight, you can do it, but between this and the Shakur fight, you might not want to lean more towards the Shakur fight. In fact, save your energy for next weekend. Jesus Christ.
Oh, my goodness. Thanks for mentioning that. Before we go around the panel here, I want to thank everybody who joined us. I want to thank Lisa. I want to thank Intangible. I want to thank Black Amazon. Check if you're checking us out. If you're still listening to us live, Black Amazon. Check out the I sent you DM. Just check your DM, please. I also want to thank Mr. Boumaye. Thank you for your questions and your comments, as well as checking us out on this show. Speaking of the 19th, I know Gail has a prior engagement next week. For long time listeners of the show, every year, at least once a year, at the very least once a year, I do what I like to call Ladies Love Boxing show. That is Ladies Love Boxing episode. Excuse me. That is I have a panel made up of all women joining yours truly, and basically it's just me and yours truly, myself and the ladies chopping it up, talking about boxing. I'm looking to do that show on the 21st, which is on a Monday, the week following the big card on the 19th. The 21st is the targeted date. If you're a woman, if you're a lady who loves boxing, who watches boxing on the regular, if you want to take part, please reach out to me on Pound for Pound Box Report Twitter page at P4P Box Report. You can also check me on my personal Twitter page, Brother JR at Brother JR76. Or if you want, you can shoot me an email. Lisa, I see you in the chat. I'm sending you out an open invitation right now. Others who want to email me and discuss being a part of the show, just email me at P4PBoxing at P4P Boxing Report. Again, I'm looking to do the latest edition of our Ladies Love Boxing episode of Pound for Pound Boxing Report. The target date, the day I'm looking to have that on is on the 21st. Again, if you're interested, hit me up on Pound for Pound Boxing Report Twitter. Hit me on my personal Twitter via DM, or just email us P4PBoxing at P4PBoxingReport.com. Going to go around the panel here. Begin the show with ladies first. Going to end the show always with ladies first. Gail from Communities Digital News and the Falcon Valley Group. For those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk media, because that is your hustle. For those who want to talk about the Falcon Valley Group or interested in the Falcon Valley Group and what it does, let them know where they can find you. And quick plug for Falcon Valley
Group. We'll slow roll the Falcon Valley Group, but it is my public relations firm based in San Diego, falconvalleygroup.com. But where I need you to find me is my regular boxing column, which is at Communities Digital News portal, COMM, DIGI News, comdiginews.com.
And for those who are looking for some PR help, excellent service, by the way. Let the folks know where they can hit you up.
At the website I just mentioned, falconvalleygroup.com. This is generally for larger organizations, so check me out.
Indeed. I'll go to you, Daniel, from the Inscriber and 4 Boxing News. For those who want to talk boxing, for those who want to talk wrestling, and side question, Daniel, SmackDown, when did Otis become a heel, and when did he lose the beard? I got to know. Maybe I'm late on it.
Apparently, he shaved it this week, and no, he's been a heel for a bit, for a little bit for the past few months, since he got paired up with Chad Gable, and yeah, they're trying to do something with him at least, because they let his other partner go, like one of the many cuts that WWE has done, which obviously has fueled the speculation that Vince McMahon is looking to sell. But we'll leave it at that area. But at least you pick probably the better of the two products that they have on TV right now, because Raw, Jesus Christ.
For those who want to talk wrestling, for those who want to talk boxing, for those who want to check out what's on the Inscriber, for those who want to check out the NBA, especially when it comes to the Miami Heat, or check out an episode of the 4 Boxing News podcast. Let the folks know where they can hit you up.
So you can find me on Twitter at Rawkus99, RAWKUZ99. I'm going to actually upload tonight the episode that me, Jerome Francis, recorded yesterday. They didn't have the chance to last night. And we're going to be able to show you what our thoughts were on the whole fiasco that happened last week. And definitely we'll be able to catch us on next Thursday, because, yeah, we're going to need an IB, folks, because we were hoping one of the cards fell through with the Munguia, but Munguia got a replacement opponent. So get your IVs ready, get Gatorade, get whatever you need to stay up, because Father's Day weekend is going to be very, very busy.
Yeah, absolutely. When we return, first and foremost, let's say that for those who want to talk boxing, music, fitness, you know what it is with me, Brother JR, at Brother JR76 on Twitter. As I said at the beginning of the show, if you wanted to find all information about the show, you can go to the website, P4PBoxingReport.com. If you want to email us, you can do so at P4PBoxing at P4PBoxingReport.com. If you check the top center of the website, you'll find links to where to find us all over podcast realms, Anchor, Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts. Please be sure to follow us on iTunes, follow us on Spotify. Please leave a review on iTunes. 5-star review will get read on the show. If you're checking us out live on YouTube, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you spread the word and share the word about the show. Also on the website, information where to follow us all over social media, the Twitter page, the YouTube page, the IG page, the Tumblr page, where you can donate. And last but certainly not least, the link to my online coaching page on Beachbody.com. Beachbody on demand, beachbody.com, Beachbody on demand. Again, let's build together group challenge. Another one kicking off July 5th. So you can get that last little bit of July 4th food and then get back on the grind, starting right back on the 5th. Let's build together July fitness challenge, which will be a 6-week challenge. On the next episode, to Daniel's point, oh boy, it's a lot of fights on the 19th. Probably will not do a show next week because Gail has other obligations. So when we return, hopefully for the Ladies Love Boxing show, another rendition of that, we will do a recap of Shakur, Stevenson, and against Nakathila and Pedraza. And we're going to try, Gail, to talk about all these fights on the 19th. Let me give a rundown. Give me a second, folks. Give me a minute, a good minute. Naoya Inoue makes his return to the ring, fighting a mandatory contender by the name of, from the Philippines, by the name of Das Marinas. That's going to be on ESPN on the 19th. On the undercard of that, Michaela Mayer making the first defense of her WBO women's 130-pound title. She's going to be facing Erica Ferreras. Adam Lopez is going to be fighting Isaac Dogbe. That's all going to be on the 19th on ESPN. Also on the 19th in Miami on Trailer pay-per-view, Teofimo Lopez making his first defense of the unified IBF, WBA, WBO world lightweight titles. He's fighting a mandatory contender, George Kambosos. Kambosos ranked number 1, I believe, by the IBF. Also on that card, fight for all the belts at 168 pounds. All the world belts. That's Frantron Cruz, WBC, WBO champion, will fight Elin Cederos, who's the WBA IBF champion. Michael Hunter is also on that card. Willie Monroe Jr., Charles Carmel, are also on that card. That's going to be in Miami. In Houston on the 19th, going to be on Showtime. Jamal Charlo is going to defend his WBC middleweight title against a cat from Mexico by the name of Montiel. Angela Leo, former WBO junior featherweight title champion. He's going to fight in a 10-round bout against Aaron Almeida. That's all going to be in Houston. In El Paso, Jaime Manguilla, he's going to fight a fighter to be determined on the 19th as well. There's a women's world flyweight bout. It's Merlina Esparza. She's fighting for the WBC flyweight title, fighting a woman sister by the name of Zamora. So yeah, all of those bouts. If things come off, Ladies Love Boxing show, Black Amazon, I'm gonna talk to you about it tomorrow night on Zoom. Get yourself ready. Get yourself ready if it all kicks off. Hopefully, Ladies Love Boxing show on the 21st. So yeah, gonna have a lot to talk about. Again, if you're interested, hit me up on Pound for Pound Boxing Report Twitter page at P4P Boxing Report. Hit me up on my personal Twitter at BrotherJR76, or you can email me once again at P4PBoxing at P4PBoxingReport.com. Let me breathe. Whew, that was a lot. So for Gail from Communities Digital News and the Falcon Valley Group, for Daniel from the Inscriber and for Boxing News. Once again, I want to thank everybody that joined us on the live show. Intangible, Lisa Black Amazon with her comments on Twitter, and also Mr. Boumaye. Excuse me, folks. Had to check something out right quick. Episode 329 of Pound for Pound Box Report. Probably will not be a show next week, but it will be a show the week after. Hopefully, Ladies Love Boxing. Another round of that. It was for Gail, for Daniel. I'm your host, Michael. We will see you next time. Everyone have a good evening. Good night.